About 3 years ago, I had a short phone call with Roy after NSF contacted me about the possibility of a network, a collaborative network around learning technologies. And Roy started talking about things like the Cicero network, and he mentioned his colleague Jari Multisilta. I had no idea what sort of lineage and chronology preceded an initiative that NSF, the Academy, and TECHUS were contemplating at the time. So at the time, I understood what we were about to do and what we're about to talk about to be a fairly new subject or new undertaking, and soon came to find out that it was had a very deep and long history, and I was very excited to take part in that. So I didn't know Jari at the time. This was 3 years ago, and we decided that today we've come to know each other in the last 3 years through multiple visits. I'm Eric Hamilton. I'm at Pepperdine University, and I coordinate on the U.S. side the network that Jari and I will talk about for a few minutes. We will ask those who have been in the network to identify themselves, and you'll see that there's a large population here of SAVI members. This is one exemplar or one offshoot or one derivative, one result of the entire collaboration that's been going on for 10 years. It's been going on for the last 2.5 years now. It's coming really to the end of its original funding cycle, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But we thought we'd start by sharing just a little bit about the perspective from our mutual countries of how this initiative unfolded, and in so doing tell you a little bit more about it. And then we will, Hanley wrote the programs that talk about your outcomes and successes, and we'll do that, but we'll do that in the context of a broader collaboration and perhaps scoping out or giving something of an informal perspective for where we can go. So Jari, you want to say a little bit about how you saw the SAVI unfolding, and then I'll do the same, and then after that we'll ask people to identify themselves who are in the SAVI.
Yeah, as it told, it was about 3 years ago when this idea of SAVI started. We had a conference here at Stanford at that time, and we had a little bit more than this there at that time. But anyway, there were also people from Academy of Finland, the president of Academy of Finland, and people responsible of funding learning kind of projects from NSF there. And the president of Academy of Finland suggested that Finland and United States should start a joint research program called SAVI, Science Across Virtual Institutes, on Learning and Education. And that sounded very good initiative, and we were actually very surprised how quickly NSF responded. So when Hannele and I went back from Stanford to Helsinki, we were contacted by the Academy of Finland, and they asked us to start preparing like what would be the initial program themes for this SAVI. And it took 3 months. In April, people from NSF came to Finland, and they reviewed what we proposed, and the theme, of course, it continued. Themes were more elaborated, but finally NSF and Academy of Finland invited us to Washington to a workshop that Eric was chairing there, and there were researchers from Finland and from United States, from several universities, like matchmaking, pairing, finding joint research problems, and it was really intensive 2 days. We worked hard, I think, but it was very fruitful, because after that 2 days and our homework, like 2 weeks after that, we had already proposals for projects.
Right.
And we had first funding decisions by the end of that year. So it started in the end of January, and by the end of that year, we already had funded projects. And I think what was important from the Finland point of view was that, yes, as Vice Rector said, we are very proud of our educational system, but we also realize that United States and this area here, you are more advanced in using technology in schools. Not all schools, but in many schools, there are things we wanted to learn from you. So I think that was one driving force why we wanted to collaborate with the United States.
Well, it was certainly an interest on the U.S. side, and it was a remarkable example of agility on the part of the different agencies. I was aware by May of the meeting that you had in April, or in January rather, and was contacted right after this meeting that you referred to by an official at NSF who said, I have a proposition for you. And she gave me a little bit of the history and of the meetings, especially the prior January and April meetings between the agencies, in which there was an expressed intent for the United States research communities in learning and education to capitalize on, learn from, engage with, collaborate with Finnish counterparts. But to do that, you needed to have people in place and ready to go. It also turned out that the NSF director had in recent months formulated his own model for what international collaboration could look like. And it was actually a fairly well-reasoned and well-informed model. But the director had an approach that coincided with what was being proposed. And this approach, called SAVI, Science Across Virtual Institutes, was a means by which he wanted to encourage low-cost, high-outcome collaborations across the fields that NSF supports. So imagine this, you're the director of the agency, this is a cabinet level position, and this is turning into your signature project. So your signature initiative, your signature effort on the international stage. Virtual institutes, you would get engineering research, you'd get astronomy research, mathematical research that could take place between consortia internationally. You also had this interest in education. And lo and behold, you had a ready-made collaboration that had originated here 10 years ago. So you put all those together, and that was sort of, it was like throwing a match on gasoline. By the end of the year, there were 27 different funding decisions towards building this collaboration network. The funding record was 27-0. So I mention that because you don't go to competitive funding agencies and get a 27-0 record. The proposals were all good, but the important point is that the agencies were working together in an effort to get what turned out to be 8 teams in Finland, collaborating with 8 teams in the United States in the areas of learning sciences and learning technologies. We were enjoined, required, compelled, encouraged to have what we would call a unifying theme, a unifying, cohering construct that we would approach and study as a network of 8 bilateral teams. And we did have this meeting in June. Barbara Olds had asked me at the end of April, we need to have a workshop. And the Finns have reserved the embassy for June 7th and 8th. Can you organize a workshop? And the rule is that the Finnish government's going to bring some of their 15 or 20 of their best researchers, and all we want you to do is write a proposal to underwrite having a similar number of US researchers show up at the embassy, and then we're going to do speed dating. I don't know if Barbara used that term then, she certainly used it before we were done, but the idea was to get, this is like cherry picking. I'm looking at this list of NSF awardees, smart people I've been you know, I've been drooling over their work for years and years, just exciting. And hey, you want to come to DC and meet some Finnish counterparts? So that was a lot of fun. I did tell my wife that night, and we were having an intense discussion about, you know, time on task. And I said, well, you know, Barbara called me and said, would you be interested, would you be available to do this workshop? And Christy says, what, so like this would be in a year or something? I said, no, honey, it's going to be in 6 weeks. So the air turned a little chilly, and then we resumed the discussion a couple of days later, and we went ahead and had the workshop. I will say it was, to me, it was not only hard working, it was electric. Because we're in a field where there is so much coming down the road. We're in a field where there is so much excitement. To watch people learn, and for us as investigators to help uncover ways that human potential, human learning can unfold in different and better ways with the new tools that we have. That is as exciting as it can get. So watching people engaged in different avenues of this was just a blast for those 2 days. A lot of work, a lot of social dynamics, you know, you're going up and down. You have to pay attention to the NSF funders. Are they happy? And they didn't know what they wanted to do. They had no idea that they were going to be funding everything before the end of the year. And it was the start of something beautiful, Jari.
Yeah, it was. And the projects are here listed. So all these projects got funded, both in Finland and in the United States. And why don't we present people who are involved in these projects?
Sure. If you have been involved in a SAVI project at all in any one of the 8, please, if you could just stand up and let's see where you are. Okay, so the first project, by the way, I don't know if anyone is here from the WEPS project, who's been in WEPS. That was run by Eamon Kelly, who's now at NSF, but also primarily by Mika Sepala, who passed away in January. And then if I can just go around and ask you to identify what project you were with, that would be great, or projects. And I'll start with our forerunner here, Hanali. You were with the VIP project?
And also in WEPS.
Yeah.
And in WEPS, okay.
Yeah, both, yeah.
For the Video Inquiry Project.
VIP. Rupe?
I'm Rob Ransman from the University of Tampere, and also a visiting professor at Stanford starting today. And I was in number 2 and number 5, fun.
Renata?
Hi, Renata Fuka, founding director of the Project-Based Learning Lab here at Stanford University. I'm one of the PIs of number 8, UNCODE, uncovering hidden cognitive demands of global learners, in collaboration with 2 wonderful partners from Finland, Aalto University and FIO, Finnish Institute of Organizational Health, and I want to introduce 2 of my research students, Maria Frank and Helga Zen.
Very good.
Hi, I'm Jillian Orr from WGBH in Boston. I'm an executive producer of Media for STEM Learning, and I'm working with my Finnish counterparts on the FUN project, number 5 of FUN+.
We're also at the University of Nebraska doing a fun project as well.
Okay, my name is Jari Multisilta. I come from Aalto University, and I was here visiting scholar at Stanford last year, like 7 months, and I was in projects 2 and 5. Eric Fu. Oh, sorry.
I'm a private PhD student at Stanford. I was in Finland last June for the project with Indiana and UNCODE, and I had the pleasure to spend 3 months in Finland the summer before starting my PhD to work with the partners at Aalto as well as FIO.
Well, yeah, my name is Jari Multisilta. I come from the University of Tampere. I'm a PI of the FUN project, so plenty of fun colleagues here. It's great to be here with you. And so we had 3 universities from Finland, University of Jyväskylä, University of Aalto University, University of Tampere. And US side we had University of Northern Illinois, and then we have the WHBH.
GBH.
It's close enough. And then we have also the research institute from Boston. And I was also here last year. I was an international fellow at SRI, working together with the colleagues there at pt1 and others. Great to be here again.
Hi, I'm Tunga. I'm a PhD student at Stanford, and I'm doing research on the guidance of Director Renata. I'm doing research about Monday fields that marry and learning the academic states of the global learners.
Doris Baker, I'm from SMU, Southern Methodist University, and my laboratories in Finland are the University of Jyväskylä, the Ivor Center, Littman, and Ulla Richardson. And I'm part of number 8, and we are developing, or how to connect the engagement with student learning for children. So using video games and intelligent games.
Okay, Eric Fu, Virginia Tech. I'm working on Project 2, digital textbook and work closely with people.
Okay.
Vera Kalunde, I'm from the University of Helsinki, and I'm also working in Citizen Learning Network. I was working in the Young Team project and also coordinating Polkers project, so I've been sending emails to you.
And my name is Jari Multisilta. I'm from University of Lapland, Finland, and I was one of those principal investigators in VIP project number 4. And since I visited here 10 years ago for the first time, I've been working here as a visiting scholar 2.5 years, and I've been glad.
Text is very small. I'm not able to see it from there, but perhaps it is somewhere there. So I'm Jari Multisilta from ECO project from the University of Helsinki, and my collaborators are Katarina Salmela, also from the University of Helsinki, and then we have Barbara Schneider and John Pratchett from the Michigan University.
All right, so let me see, the Pepperdine doctoral students are all working on synthesizing, so I just want to point out Sandra, Sarah Paul, Kim Welch, Tracy Garf, Janice Samuels, and Moses Akumo, who are all engaged sort of at the back end. And I'll just make one comment about the last introduction we had from Jari.
Yeah, I was in VIP project with Roy and Eric. I think it was a great way to learn what you guys are doing and how you are doing. But here it seems we have these 8 projects and topics like gaming and electronic books and mobile videos. So we decided that there is one common theme in all of these, and it turned out that engagement is something we want to, like in a greater scale, to study. So could you tell us more about the general theme?
I was very excited when we sort of came to this conclusion. We were instructed, and we would have in any case come to identifying threads that were common. So Roy was sort of the originator on the US side of the kinds of collaborations, and he was engaged very deeply in work on video storytelling in science, using digital media tools, especially mobile devices, to let youngsters capture scientific phenomena and then wrap stories around those. Very powerful underlying concept. Jari was working in developing a platform that would allow annotations and sharing of videos in science. So there was already a built-in connection, but you have also then in this network of 30 or so people who came very disparate interests. You had games for learning, you had games in engineering, you had avatars, you had studies of MOOCs. The last introduction before Jari and I came up was Jari Luonen. Jari is sort of a dean of science education in Finland. I don't know if I can say that, I don't know if I'll offend anyone, but that's how I've always looked at Jari Luonen. And he started partnering with Barbara Schneider, who was actually studying using experience sampling method to study the psychological state of engagement. So you combine artificial intelligence, games, video work, interactive digital media, theories around engagement, and we concluded that engagement, as much as what we call a greased pig it is, where you can't get your hands around it, was actually an important common thread. And at the same time, then we started spreading even further when we had the work in electronic e-learning textbooks. We had the work in how people actually keep their heads on when they're engaged in international collaborations, which might not be the right way to say that. That's often how I think about uncode. So we were sprawling, and the construct of engagement was sprawling, but it became sort of an interesting nexus for us.
Right, and I think that the idea is that without engagement there is really hard to find learning. So that was the basis for the theme. But and actually we had quite long discussions, virtual discussions, or discussions were real, but environment were virtual. So what is actually engagement? And I don't know if we have one single definition of engagement, but we probably have many definitions or many angles to engagement in our projects. And that's something what we have tried to bring up. How to identify what is engagement, how to utilize engagement in these great learning products and outcomes that originated from SAVI projects.
I think one thing that's valuable and our team is working on, because we're doing no-cost extensions and we're trying to come up with some summative statement of where the SAVI has gone, is to take this question about the multiple definitions of engagement and provide some interpretive frameworks. When people become engaged, when they get deeply immersed, cognition changes, affect changes, their relationship with what they're engaged in changes. And that became, when we think about engagement as a mediator for learning, that was the cohering area of interest. But that comes with so many points of entree depending on the areas of investigation. I explained something to our doctoral students a few days ago that I realized was a jarring realization for them. The different teams that you saw represented did not come together to study engagement. They came together because our agencies said, if you come together, we'll give you some money. And having been at NSF, I walked away with a maxim in mind that money drives ideas and ideas drive money. And in a prosperous society, that's a virtuous cycle. Those are good things. And so when you have people doing exciting work to uncover what we can be and where we can go in the future, it's okay that the idea that drawing like-minded people together to form a consortium that federal agencies in both countries would support is a good thing. The motive, though, was not how can we study engagement. The motive was how can we advance our own work individually, and then we cohered around, while we're at it, let's work on this common thread. So we consider, as part of our work in the US side, is to, one of our tasks is to sum up, and we're working on that right now. We're going to do we have a short abstract in today, and we're going to talk with some people about that, and we'll do that at conferences coming up. But there are so many points of entree, and we think that engagement, which has been a very hard to get a hold of construct, there are ways that we can get more theoretical traction and purchase on it that will actually help contribute to future research for what all of us envision as a very exciting, I like to think that we're on a cusp of a golden age for education if we can just pull our heads together and do it right.
Right.